In today's video, we're going to be painting up some spiders from the Dungeons & Dragons Nolzar's Marvelous Miniature range. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some castle grey here to paint up one of the spiders. We're going to be painting them in different colours because you actually get 3 spiders in one packet. So just starting off with the castle grey here, and we're just going to paint over the whole spider, everything, just the legs, the body, everything like that, all getting down with a nice base coat of castle grey. Okay, so once we have that spider done, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to another spider that we have in the pack, and we're going to be painting this up in necromancer cloak. So we're going to be painting this the exact same way we did with the last spider, except for using necromancer cloak. So we're just going to be painting over the whole thing, the legs, the body, absolutely everything. We want to paint the whole thing in the necromancer cloak colour. And then with that, it's time to move on to our last spider in our 3-pack, and we're going to use Monster Brown for this. So again, just the same technique, just painting over the whole thing, giving a nice even coverage with all the paint. And then once we do that, we can move on to our next step. So now once we have all those 3 spiders all painted up in their base coat, what we're going to do now is we're going to move on with some nlun oil from Citadel, and we're going to use this to shade over our entire miniatures. Now I'm going to be using the shade to cover all 3 of the spiders, so the black one, the grey one and the brown one we've just done. We're going to be using nlun oil on all of them. You may want to switch it up, but for me I want to keep them all the same with the dark shade. So once all that nlun oil is dry, what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our spider, and we're going to be using fur brown. Now this here is the spider that we painted up in the monster brown, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be painting the little joints on the spider. So just getting in there, painting every little bit of joints. It'll take a little while, but it's going to add a little bit of detail on there. Then once you've painted on those joints, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dry brushing on that exact same fur brown, and we'll be just dry brushing that on, on the back end of the spider, just to bring out those little details. It's got some nice fur detail actually sculpted onto it, so we want to bring that out quite well with a dry brush. And then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to come back with our necromancer cloak spider, and we're going to use our castle grey again on this. Now the castle grey we actually used on our grey one. This is our necromancer cloak one, so it's just a little bit different here, and it's going to really bring out the dark blacks, and the grey that we have is going to give it like a nice highlight on all those edges as well. So again, we're just dry brushing the backs, and don't forget to, how we did with our fur, our brown one that we just did, is to paint up all those little bits on the knees, I guess you call it, but I don't know exactly what you call it, the little joints on the legs anyway. That's what you want to be doing, just dabbing them on there, and make sure you get both sides as well, on the underside of these miniatures. And then with our black spider done, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our grey spider, and we want to use ash grey to highlight our spider. So again, doing the same technique we've just done with the other 2, just grabbing that ash grey and dry brushing it on to the back of the spider. And we're also going to come back, of course, and just use a little bit of paint to paint on all those joints that the spider has on its legs. Just add on some nice added detail on there, and stop them from being so plain as if we were just to use the grey for the whole thing. So once we've done that, we've actually pretty much completed those 3 spiders. So I've actually just grabbed a phase spider as well from the Nolzar's Marvelous Miniature range, and we're going to paint this up as well. So I thought I'd add in another one while here. So we're just going to start off with some matte white here, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be painting the underbelly of the phase spider. This matte white. Now it's probably going to take a couple of coats to really bring out that white on it, because it's already a grey, and we want to really bring that white out on there. So we're also just going to be painting up the bottom, I don't know if you call them the bottoms of the tops of the leg, the bits that connect to the body anyway. We want to paint it halfway up, just leaving the very tips of the phase spider's legs. We're going to be painting those up another colour. So just make sure you're getting on there with a couple of coats of the white to really enhance the white and separate it out from the grey primer that's already on it. So once we have all that white complete, what we're going to do now is we're now going to be painting the other parts of the spider, and we're going to be using crystal blue to paint that. So this is going to be for painting the top of the spider, so the back of him, as well as we're going to be also using this blue to paint up the tips of the legs that we didn't paint up with the white. So as you can see too, the phase spider also has sort of like a pattern on the side of its body. So what we can do is, with a detail brush if you need to, or just with the brush you're using already to paint it up, is just carefully go in there and try and pick out some of those spots, as well as trying to get around where the legs connect to the body as well is also quite a difficult place to get into. So just using some patience and bit of control with your brush can make it just a little bit easier to get in there. So here's the detail that I said you can just see on the side here. So I'm just being careful now to try and get those shapes in as much as I can. Now don't worry if you miss it entirely, because you can always go back with the matte white and place it over. It will take a couple of coats to cover it back up. That's why I'm just trying to be as precise as I can. And then of course, like I said before, don't forget about painting the tips of the legs. So I'm painting them up to sort of the first joint or elbow or knee or whatever you call these parts of a spider, but the first joint on the spider's leg anyway. So just painting them up with the blue as well. Okay, so now we have all that painted up and all our blue paint is dry. What we're going to do is we're going to come back with our matte white, and we're going to be using this matte white to paint in the eyes on the phase spider's head. Now, phase spider's head part of the body is basically covered in eyes, so there's going to be a lot of dots placing on here. So I'm just grabbing a small detail brush and I'm just dabbing it on, carefully going around each eye. Now, because it's a white, it's going to take probably a couple of coats to get it on there properly, so it's all one matte color and you can't see that blue underneath. So just remember about that, but you may want to have that little bit of blue shade underneath. It's all up to you. So once we've got all the eyes of the phase spider all painted in, what we're going to do is we're going to come back with our crystal blue, which we use for painting the blue parts of our phase spider. And if you can see, it may be a little bit hard to see here, but the phase spider actually has little dots on the side of his body that are engraved in to the miniature. So I'm just trying to pick those out as carefully as I can. This is quite a delicate process, and it just takes a real steady hand. So I'm just bracing my hand on my other hand, trying to keep it as steady as possible, and I'm just sort of dabbing the paint on and letting it go into a circle rather than trying to paint a circle. Just find it's a little bit easier for me. So just being real careful with all those details, and it just brings out quite a nice effect on there that's added onto the little spider. And don't forget to do the other side as well. Now there's also a lot more of the dots underneath the phase spider as well, apart from the just initial row that I'm doing. So you can paint them in if you want to as well, or you may just want to keep this top row. I'm going to be painting in just a few more of the little ones underneath as well. Like I said, it's totally up to you. You may want to leave these all out entirely. It's just up to what you want to do. So now with all those little blue dot details all painted on our phase spider, what we're going to be doing is we're going to come in now with a ash grey, and we're going to be using this to paint the stone that the phase spider is on. So just a nice simple ash grey, just to cover up all our bits of paint we've painted on when we've been over painting, sort of just to get all those little details. So using that to cover it up. Just quite a good colour, this ash grey, for a nice flat grey stone. So once we have our flat stone that the spider is sitting on painted up, what we're going to do is we're going to come in now with a matte black. I'm going to be using this matte black to just paint up the tips of the fangs of the phase spider's fangs. I'm not sure what you call them. I guess fangs. So we're just going to be using that to just paint up the little tips of the fangs of the phase spider. Now once fangs on our phase spider are all painted up, what we're going to do is we're going to come back with some Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to use the Agrax Earthshade to paint up the stone that the phase spider is on. Now I'm not going to be actually putting any washes on the phase spider, because I think the phase spider is quite a ethereal, sort of freaky, unnatural entity monster. So I'm gonna avoid giving the washes because I feel like putting the washes on can sort of ground it and make it more realistic. So just avoiding the washes on the spider. I want to keep it sort of otherworldly and has unnatural sort of color to it, but that's totally up to you. So what we're going to do next actually is just something a little bit different. Is I've just got a base here for our spider miniature, the first one we painted up, and I'm going to be placing some Vallejo earth texture on it. Now this is a texture that you paint on, and it's basically like paint with some sand and stuff in it. It gives off like an earthy, realistic ground looking texture. So I'm doing this on here to just add a little bit more interest to the spiders, since they're a reasonably plain miniature. As well too, this is a slightly bigger base than what comes in the spider pack, because I was having a lot of trouble trying to fit the spiders onto the little bases that they came with. So I just went up here and used a bigger base to place them on. Now once all that earth texture is all dried up, what we're going to do is we're going to come in with a desert yellow, and we're going to use this to dry brush our earth texture that we place on. So I want to give it sort of like a cave sort of appearance, or just a dried sort of earthy texture, just to vary it up from the original color of the earth texture. So just going over now with a dry brush and quite heavily just placing it on. Now for this next step is actually something I've never done before, and I'm giving it a try here. I've just seen a bunch of videos online, and I've just grabbed some epoxy adhesive, and what I'm going to be doing is trying to make sort of a pool, a water pool in the middle of this this base that I've done here. So it's something quite different. I've never tried anything like this before, so I hope it goes okay. So I'm just placing a little bit of this two-part epoxy on here, and sort of just wiping off the excess that I don't need, and giving it a little bit of a mix and pulling out whatever that is. I guess just some of the hardened up inside there. So I'm just trying to peel that off. I've always wanted to try some texture effects, water effects, sorry, on a base. I've never done it before, so this is my first trying into it. And I thought with the spiders being in a cave, you'll find little pools in the bottoms of caves. And so now I'm just going to come in here with some blue ink, and I'm just going to add just a teeny bit onto the end of a toothpick here and just mix it in, trying to get the right consistency and make it look like water. I'm also just mixing it around with the toothpick, because you've got to make sure that the two-part epoxy mixes together so it'll harden up nicely. Otherwise you can be left with some bad results and it won't sort of harden up properly. So I'm just going to come back in now with another drop of our blue ink, I think. Just trying to really get that blue color in there. As I said, I've never done this before, so sort of an experiment. It's starting to slowly tint it now, but I hope it comes out really cool and gives the effect off of the thing that I'm trying for. Like I said, I've never tried this before, so this is a completely new experiment to me, but you can see there it's really giving off quite a good pool effect. So I think I'm just going to add just another little drop of our ink to really get that blue in there, because I want you to be able to see it. Yeah, there we go. And then with that, we have completed painting up our range of spiders from the Dungeons & Dragons Nolzar's Marvelous Miniature range. Now you can see now that I've also just added on just a couple of little tufts of grass onto our spiders, but it's really brought out a lot of detail just by adding on those few little things, and my epoxy water effect has come out way better than I thought it was going to. So that's an added bonus as well for something I've never tried before. But with that, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching. I hope this has been helpful for you, and I'll see you in the next video.